The mighty Brisbane Broncos, a very proud club, but a club with a fan base who would not be happy with what they've seen over the last 5 years. Inconsistencies plagued them, but they're looking stronger this year. We're going to be previewing them and how we expect them to go in 2023. First up, Miles, a couple of big signings for the Broncos. Reece Walsh, Madden comes across too. Are there any names on the list that stand out for you?
Look, I don't think you can go past Reece Walsh in any way whatsoever. By far the best signing that the Brisbane Broncos have made, I reckon, in the last 3 or 4 years. Maybe a little bit of Adam Reynolds comes in there, but Reece Walsh, such an exciting young talent. There's a bit of conjecture as to what position he's actually going to play. I've heard some people saying he's going to be playing 5'8". I haven't seen a lot of him playing 5'8". I prefer him at the fullback position, but that's where I think he will end up. And they'll stick with Ezra Mam, just because Ezra was such a exciting little pocket rocket last year. He came in and he did a job, and I think he was the perfect accompaniment for Adam Reynolds as well. Whereas I think Reece Walsh, based on being at the Warriors for the last couple of years, we've seen him and he's demanded the ball a lot. Whereas in this Broncos side, he needs to let a bit of that go and realise that he is potentially not the only guy who can make something happen. So I would easily say Reece Walsh is their best signing this year.
I think he'll be happy with that, though. He looked pretty dejected down the stretch for the Warriors last year, and he was having to do everything, and he was getting a lot of pressure, he was getting a lot of criticism for his defence as well, and maybe this year he can just focus on his role a bit more specifically, feed early balls to those explosive outside backs, and just focus on those fundamentals too, because he's a young guy. On the losses side, I've got a few names here I'm going to read out, and I want you to tell me who stands out for you as the biggest loss for the Broncos this year. So you got Tessie New, you got Turpin, you got Gamble, Martin, Hosking. There's a skew of other names there too, but who stands out for you?
For me, it's actually Zach Hosking. I think the guy showed that he can come in and do a job, and that's all you need for the Brisbane Broncos. We talked about a little bit of consistency coming into play there. He was by far one of their most consistent players when he was on the field. Last year, he came in, made his tackles, ran his lines, and that's all you want out of your edge back rower. And for me, I think it's such a good poach from the Panthers and their recruitment team. And they've gone out and signed a guy who not only comes on and does his job, but he wants it more than anyone because he was a tradie halfway through last year. It just goes to show that anyone can turn up sometimes and play NRL. And it's such a good story for me that Zach Hosking got that opportunity, and now he's at a 2-time premiership winning club looking for a three-peat. So he finds himself in a pretty decent position, I would say.
Yeah, he was solid. Just to stand up for the Broncos administration, for the Broncos fans who are watching, I don't mind the way they've taken their roster. I don't mind the release of Hosking myself. Going into their biggest strength, the way I see it is it's explosive edges. So Hosking is a very solid player, but he's not as explosive as a guy like Kurt Capewell or a guy like Jordan Ricky, for example. And these guys, Ricky, for example, isn't that consistent, but his upside is there. And I think the Broncos are focusing on that upside. Same as, you go out a bit wider and you've got guys like Herbie Farmworth there, Katoni Staggs, Selwyn Cobbo, Corey Oates. All these guys that Reece Walsh is going to have to feed that early ball to. I think that's what the Brisbane Broncos have made their identity this year, and that they want to be that explosive, fun attacking team that offloads, that hit holes, that does not give the defence a rest. And a guy like Hosking potentially doesn't fit into that plan, and maybe he fits more into Penrith's defensive style.
Yeah, a bit of high risk, high reward, I would say. The young roster that they have as well is phenomenal. Guys like Cobbo, I think Reece Walsh, Payne Haas is still very young as well. Pat Carrigan, these young guys for the Broncos have really got to start taking that next step up. And this year they've got a big chance to do that. And the roster, as we've discussed a little bit, is jam-packed with some action players. They make stuff happen. So if they can harness that, and Kevy Walters can get the guys under his wing and just take them and ride them into that top 8, I can definitely see them making the finals. However, I think in my way of going about things, I've just got a few teams above them at this point.
Yeah, we'll get to our predictions right at the end there. I want to jump to the big question. We'll go into the big question here for the Broncos, and for me, that is consistency. So we saw this team producing at a top 4 level early in 2022. Then we saw this team copping 50-point drubbings in back-to-back weeks at the back end of 2022. So it was, at the start of the year, it was looking like Adam Reynolds was the best signing in the comp, and they'd found their consistency, they'd figured out who they were, and they just completely forgot all that. In 2023, Reece Walsh, again, he's probably not the guy to solve that problem, but how are they going to solve that problem, and can they solve that problem?
It was sad to see, wasn't it? You looked at a team that were potentially, I think, top 4 with about 5 or 6 rounds left in the comp, and they just fell off a cliff. And I think solving that problem comes down to who's going to be playing the hooker spot. And for me, the great way to analyze a team's success is their spine. And for me, I can see Reynolds at halfback. I can see Ezra Mam playing 6. I can see Reece Walsh playing fullback. Who's number 9? For me, it's got to be Billy Walters. I mean, they kicked Jake Turpin to the curb, and I thought he was doing all right.
Yeah, that was a bad loss.
Yeah, he was club captain at one point as well. And they clearly had a bit of faith in the kid, but they just got rid of him. And Corey Pakes is there, and I've never really seen too much from Corey Pakes. Kobe Hetherington is a kind of lock/hooker sometimes, but I think it's going to be Billy Walters, so he's definitely got to step up. But I just don't see the spine talent there at this point in time.
I just think we're going to see enough, though, from, obviously the hooker position's tough, but we're going to see enough from Adam Reynolds. We're going to see enough from Ezra Mam in his second year. Reece Walsh in a more established system. I think we're going to see enough from them to get them into that top 8 conversation. And I know you don't have the Broncos making the 8, just out, maybe 9, 10, 11 sort of thing. I've got them sneaking in.
Oh, really?
So Broncos are around 7th on my ladder right now. It's January 7, January 8 right now, something like that. So it's a bit early. But right now, I just think they're too talented to miss out. I think Selwyn Cobbo has had another year. Tony Staggs maybe plays a full season. Herbie Farnworth was sensational in the World Cup.
He was great, wasn't he?
This roster's just too talented. Jordan Ricky, it's time to make the leap, and I think we might see him make. I'm not sure if it's going to be the full leap, but he's shown so much potential. They're in my top 8, but look, we're pretty close.
Yeah, look, I think you love to focus on the superstars of the game, which is great. They've got a really talented roster. I like to look at the mental side of things, and for me, they've just taken too many hits in the last couple of years, and it's all about how they bounce back. If they bounce back and surprise me, then that's fine. But from what I've seen over the last couple of years, I've just got to assume that they're going to capitulate again and just miss that top 8, and it's going to be another sad year for Broncos fans as far as I'm concerned. But I've got them finishing around 9, 10. So they're going to be in the race, but they're not going to get there.
All right, Brisbane. Well, you've heard it here first. Competing for that top 8, potentially just sneaking in, potentially falling out. It probably will depend a bit on injuries as well, and we can't pick everything. But
we're allowed to amend this.
Anyway, look, good luck. Let us know in the comments who you think is going to be the most important player for the Broncos this year and whether you think they'll make the 8. Anyway, we'll see you on next preview.